It was one of those days when everything felt just right. The sun was high in the sky, casting dappled shadows through the trees. The breeze was warm, the kind that made you want to just disappear into the woods and lose yourself for a while. I had always loved escaping to the forest near our house. It was peaceful, serene, and a place where I could be alone with my thoughts. That day, I had wandered deeper into the woods than usual. My feet crunched softly on the undergrowth, the scent of pine needles filling the air. It wasn't unusual for me to head out without telling anyone, and I hadn't expected anyone to follow as I ventured farther. The noise of the house, the everyday life I left behind, slowly faded away, replaced by the rustling of leaves and the occasional chirp of birds. I found a spot that seemed perfect, isolated, with a fallen log to sit on. The air was still, the silence only interrupted by nature's gentle hum. I sat there, enjoying the moment, completely unaware that my peaceful escape would soon turn into something far more unexpected. I had been lost in my thoughts for what felt like hours when I heard a sound. It was faint at first, almost like an animal moving through the brush. But then it grew louder. I froze, my heart racing slightly, wondering what could be out there. I wasn't scared of the woods, but it was rare for anyone else to be out here at this time of day. It didn't take long before I realized that the sound wasn't just any random noise. It was footsteps, and they were getting closer. Suddenly, from behind a cluster of trees, she appeared. My stepmom. I was completely caught off guard. She never ventured into the woods, let alone followed me out here. I quickly stood up, my mind racing with questions. Why was she here? How had she found me? She didn't say anything at first. Her eyes locked onto mine, and for a moment, it felt like the entire world had stopped. There was something in the way she looked at me, something different. Her usually composed demeanor seemed to slip, replaced by an expression I couldn't quite read. Part curiosity, part intrigue. "Hey," she finally said, her voice softer than usual. "I didn't expect to find you here." I swallowed hard, unsure how to respond. "I just needed some space," I said, trying to keep my tone casual, though I was anything but calm on the inside. She took a few steps closer, her gaze not leaving mine. "You come out here often, don't you?" I nodded, still not sure where this was going. There was something about the way she was acting that felt different. My stepmom had always been kind, but there was a certain distance between us. We had never been particularly close. But now, standing there in the middle of the woods, it felt like all that distance had vanished. It was just the two of us, alone, surrounded by nothing but trees. She sat down on the log I had been sitting on just moments before and patted the spot next to her, inviting me to sit down. Reluctantly, I did, though every nerve in my body was on edge. I couldn't help but notice how close we were sitting, closer than we ever had before. For a while, neither of us said anything. The silence between us was thick with tension, though I couldn't quite put my finger on why. She was the first to break the silence. "You've grown up so much," she said softly, her eyes studying my face. "It feels like just yesterday you were still a kid running around the yard." I didn't know how to respond to that. It was true. I had changed over the years, but hearing her say it like that felt strange. "I guess time flies," I mumbled, trying to sound casual. She smiled, but it wasn't the kind of smile I was used to seeing from her. There was something behind it, something more. And then, before I could even process what was happening, she leaned in closer. Her hand lightly brushed against mine, sending a jolt of electricity through my body. "I've been thinking," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of the wind rustling through the trees. "About us." My heart raced. I wasn't sure what she meant by that, but the way she was looking at me, the way she was sitting so close, it all felt wrong. And yet there was something intoxicating about the situation. I knew I should get up, walk away, say something to break the tension, but I couldn't. I was frozen in place, caught between confusion and something I didn't want to admit to myself. "What do you mean?" I finally asked, my voice shaky. She hesitated for a moment, her eyes flickering with uncertainty. Then, in a move that took me completely by surprise, she reached up and gently touched my face. Her fingers traced the line of my jaw, and my breath caught in my throat as I felt the warmth of her hand against my skin. "I mean, we've never really been close, have we?" she said, her voice filled with something that felt like regret. "But I've always felt like there was something between us, something unspoken." I didn't know how to respond. My mind was spinning, trying to make sense of what was happening. This was my stepmom, the woman who had married my father. But the way she was looking at me now, the way her touch lingered on my skin, it was like she was seeing me in a completely different light. Before I could say anything, she leaned in even closer. Her lips were just inches from mine. I could feel the heat radiating off her body, her breath warm against my skin. My heart was pounding so loudly, I was sure she could hear it. Time seemed to slow down, each second stretching into eternity. "I've been watching you," she murmured, her eyes locked onto mine. "You're not a kid anymore. You're a man." My mind was racing, a whirlwind of emotion swirling inside me. This wasn't supposed to happen. She was my stepmom. And yet here we were, alone in the woods, the boundaries between us blurring in ways I had never imagined. I opened my mouth to say something, to stop this before it went any further. But before I could, she closed the gap between us. Her lips pressed against mine in a soft, tentative kiss. It was brief, but it sent a shockwave through my entire body. I pulled back, my mind screaming at me to stop, but my body was betraying me. "I shouldn't have done that," she said, pulling away, her voice filled with guilt. But even as she said it, I could see the desire in her eyes, the longing. I stood up, needing to put some distance between us. My head was spinning, and I didn't know what to think. This wasn't right, couldn't be right. But the way she had kissed me, the way she had looked at me, it had awakened something inside me that I couldn't ignore. "I need to go," I muttered, taking a step back. She stood up too, her expression torn between regret and something else, something darker. "I'm sorry," she said, though there was a part of me that wasn't sure she meant it. Without another word, I turned and walked away, my heart still racing, my mind filled with confusion. I could feel her eyes on me as I disappeared into the trees, but I didn't look back. As I made my way out of the woods, my thoughts were a chaotic mess. What had just happened? How had things escalated so quickly? And what was I going to do now? When I finally reached the edge of the forest, I paused, looking back one last time. She was nowhere in sight, but the memory of what had just happened lingered, haunting me. I knew things would never be the same after that. There was no going back. I had crossed a line, and I wasn't sure what would happen next. The only thing I knew for sure was that this was just the beginning of something far more complicated than I had ever imagined. And as much as I wanted to forget what had happened in the woods that day, I knew I never would. My life had just taken a turn I hadn't seen coming, and there was no telling where it would lead. As I emerged from the woods, my mind was racing, each thought tumbling over the other like a chaotic storm. The serenity I had once felt among the trees had vanished, replaced by a tumultuous mix of confusion, guilt, and an unexpected thrill. I needed to process what had just happened, but the reality of it felt like a weight I couldn't escape. My stepmom's kiss replayed over and over in my mind. It was confusing, both intoxicating and alarming. I had always seen her as an authority figure, someone who was a part of my life in a strictly familial capacity, but now that image was shattered, and I was left grappling with a new, unsettling reality. When I got home, I avoided eye contact with her. I was relieved when my dad came into the room, which gave me an excuse to escape to my room. I locked the door behind me, sat on my bed, and buried my face in my hands. How had things gotten so out of hand? I replayed the moments in the woods over and over, trying to understand what had motivated her actions. Had she felt something more than just a fleeting attraction? Or was this a momentary lapse of judgment? The next few days were torturous. Every time I saw her, I was reminded of what had happened. I could sense the tension between us, an unspoken acknowledgement of the incident that had changed everything. My dad seemed oblivious to the change in atmosphere, but I couldn't ignore the weight that now hung between my stepmom and me. It was clear that something had to be addressed. The silence was deafening, and I found myself avoiding her whenever possible. Each time we crossed paths, my heart raced, my mind flashing back to that moment in the woods. I couldn't continue living in this state of denial and avoidance. It wasn't fair to either of us. One evening, as I was heading out to the kitchen, I found her standing there. Her expression was serious but not unfriendly. She looked as though she had been waiting for me. I stopped in my tracks, feeling my pulse quicken. "Can we talk?" she asked softly. I nodded, though my throat felt tight. I followed her into the living room, where we sat down on opposite ends of the couch. The room felt small, the space between us charged with a heavy tension. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened," she began, her voice steady, but tinged with emotion. "I know it was unexpected, and I'm sorry for the confusion it's caused." I nodded, unable to meet her eyes. "Yeah, it was a lot to process. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable," she continued. "It was a moment of weakness. I've been struggling with my own feelings, and I didn't handle it well." Her words made me look up. There was a vulnerability in her eyes that I hadn't seen before. She wasn't just apologizing. She was opening up about her own struggles. "I don't want things to be awkward between us," she said. "I value our family and want to maintain a respectful relationship." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "I understand. I just need some time to figure things out. It's a lot to take in." She nodded in agreement. "Take all the time you need. I'll respect your space." We sat in silence for a few moments, the gravity of the situation settling between us. It was clear that this conversation was just the beginning of a long process. We both had to navigate our feelings and rebuild the boundaries that had been blurred. As the days went by, I tried to focus on my own well-being. I spent more time with friends and engaged in activities that kept my mind occupied. The woods, once a sanctuary, now felt like a place of painful memories, so I avoided it for a while. Instead, I tried to find solace in other parts of my life, finding comfort in familiar routines and friendships. My stepmom and I maintained a polite distance, exchanging cordial greetings but keeping our conversations brief. The change in our dynamic was palpable, and though it was awkward, there was an unspoken understanding between us. We both knew that things couldn't return to the way they were before, but we were committed to making the best of the situation. Eventually, our interactions became more comfortable. The initial awkwardness faded, replaced by a cautious respect for each other's space and feelings. It was clear that the incident in the woods had left its mark, but we were learning to navigate our new reality. Life continued, and while the woods remained a place of complex memories, I tried to find peace in moving forward. I realized that while the experience had been jarring, it had also been a catalyst for personal growth. I had learned about boundaries, personal space, and the importance of communication in relationships. The situation with my stepmom was still evolving, but the key was honesty and respect. As time went on, we found a way to coexist, understanding that while things had changed, we could still find common ground and maintain a sense of normalcy in our lives. And so life went on. The woods, once a place of unexpected revelations, became a distant memory as I focused on the future. The experience had taught me valuable lessons about relationships and the complexities of human emotions. It was a chapter in my life that had left a lasting impression, and though it was not one I had anticipated, it had shaped me in ways I was only beginning to understand. I was lying in bed, lost in my thoughts after a long day, when my husband entered the room with an unexpected energy in his eyes. He sat beside me, caressing my arm softly, and leaned in for a kiss. There was something different in the air that night. It wasn't our usual routine, and I could feel it. We had always shared a deep connection, both emotionally and physically, and I could sense when something was on his mind. But tonight, it was more than that. There was an excitement in him that I couldn't quite place. He kissed me with a passion that sent shivers down my spine, and as we pulled away, he whispered softly in my ear, "I have something special planned for us tonight." His words intrigued me, and I smiled, curious about what he had in mind. Over the years, we had explored many aspects of our relationship, always keeping the spark alive in different ways. But his tone suggested this was something new, something I wasn't prepared for. I could see a hint of nervousness in his eyes, mixed with excitement. He stood up and reached for his phone, typing a quick message. I watched him, still curious but trusting whatever he had planned. Moments later, there was a knock at the door. My heart raced a little faster, unsure of what to expect. He walked to the door and opened it, revealing his best friend standing there, smiling. I was confused at first. Why was his friend here so late at night? My husband's friend, someone I'd known for years, stepped inside, and the two of them exchanged a look that made everything clear in an instant. My mind began to race as the pieces fell into place, but I still couldn't believe what I was thinking. Was this really happening? I glanced at my husband, who had a playful grin on his face. He walked over to me, took my hand, and pulled me up from the bed. His touch was comforting, reassuring, even as my heart pounded in anticipation. "We've talked about exploring something different," he said softly, his eyes searching mine for any sign of discomfort. I nodded slowly, remembering the few times we had casually discussed the idea of being more adventurous in our intimate life. But it had always seemed like a distant fantasy, something fun to talk about, but never act on. But now, standing in the room with his best friend, it didn't feel like just a fantasy anymore. It was real. And the reality of it both thrilled and scared me. I looked at both of them, my husband waiting for my reaction, his friend standing a little awkwardly, perhaps unsure of how I would respond. I could feel my cheeks flush, my body reacting to the situation in ways I didn't expect. Taking a deep breath, I realized that I wasn't afraid. I trusted my husband more than anyone in the world. And if this was something he wanted to explore, I was willing to go there with him. I gave him a small, nervous smile, and that was all the confirmation he needed. He kissed me again, deeply, passionately, and I felt myself melting into the moment. His friend joined us, first standing close, then touching me gently, testing the waters. It was strange at first, feeling someone else's hands on me while my husband watched. But the strangeness quickly gave way to something more exciting, more intense. It was like being in a dream. The boundaries of our usual life blurred into this wild, unexpected experience. My senses were heightened. Every touch, every kiss felt more electric than ever before. The night unfolded in ways I could never have imagined. There were moments when I couldn't tell where one set of hands ended and another began, where I lost myself completely in the heat of the moment. My husband's friend was respectful, careful, always checking in with both of us, making sure we were comfortable. And my husband, he was watching me the whole time, his eyes filled with love and lust, making me feel desired in ways I had never experienced before. I could see that he was enjoying this just as much as I was, and that knowledge fueled me, made me feel more alive, more connected to him than ever before. This wasn't just about sex. It was about trust, about pushing boundaries together, about experiencing something new and thrilling as a couple. I felt closer to him in those moments than I ever had before, even as we shared this intimate experience with someone else. As the night went on, we explored each other in ways that felt both familiar and new. There was no jealousy, no awkwardness, just an overwhelming sense of connection and pleasure. It was clear that my husband had planned this carefully, making sure that I felt safe and loved every step of the way. And his friend, he was patient, respectful, never overstepping the boundaries that we had silently set. When it was over, we lay together in a tangled mess of sheets and limbs, exhausted and exhilarated. My husband kissed me gently, his eyes full of love and satisfaction. "How do you feel?" he asked softly, brushing a strand of hair away from my face. I smiled up at him, feeling a rush of emotions: love, gratitude, excitement. "I feel amazing," I whispered. And I did. It wasn't just the physical pleasure of the night. It was the knowledge that we had taken this journey together, that we had shared something deeply personal and intimate, and come out the other side stronger for it. His friend left shortly after, leaving the two of us alone. We cuddled together, my head resting on his chest as I listened to the steady beat of his heart. I felt safe, loved, and completely at peace. This was more than just a wild night. It was a testament to the strength of our relationship, to the trust and love we had built over the years. In the days that followed, we didn't talk much about what had happened, but there was a new spark between us, an unspoken understanding that we had crossed a new threshold together. Our connection, already strong, felt deeper, more unshakable. We had shared something that most couples never do, and it had only made us stronger. Looking back on that night, I still can't believe how it all unfolded. It was unexpected, thrilling, and deeply intimate, in ways I could never have predicted. But more than anything, it reminded me of the importance of trust, communication, and openness in a relationship. My husband and I had always been good at talking to each other, at being open about our desires and needs. And this experience was a direct result of that. If there's one thing I've learned from that night, it's that love and intimacy come in many forms. And sometimes the most unexpected experiences can bring you closer to the person you love. It was a night I will never forget. Not just because of what happened, but because of what it represented. The strength of our bond, the depth of our trust, and the endless possibilities that come when two people truly love and understand each other. As I sit here now, reflecting on that night, I feel a deep sense of gratitude for my husband, for his love, and for the way he continues to surprise me, even after all these years. Our relationship is stronger than ever, and I know that no matter what the future holds, we'll face it together, just like we always have. For anyone out there wondering if something like this could bring you closer to your partner, all I can say is, trust each other, communicate openly, and never be afraid to explore new experiences together. You might just find that it strengthens your bond in ways you never imagined. As the days passed after that unforgettable night, the memory of it lingered in my mind like a secret I held close to my heart. My husband and I continued with our daily routines, but there was an unspoken bond that had grown stronger between us. It was as if we had unlocked a new level of intimacy, one that went beyond just physical connection. We had shared something vulnerable, something daring, and it made me feel more connected to him than ever before. There were moments when I'd catch him looking at me with that same mischievous smile he had the night of the threesome, and it would make my heart race all over again. We didn't have to talk about it. The experience had spoken for itself, but it left me wondering, was this something we would explore again? Would this become a regular part of our relationship? Or was it just a one-time thing? I was surprised to realize that I wasn't afraid of the answer. In fact, the thought of exploring more together excited me. My husband had always been attentive to my needs, and this experience had shown me that our love could grow in ways I hadn't imagined. It was about trust, about giving each other permission to experience pleasure without boundaries, knowing that our foundation was strong enough to handle it. One evening, as we sat on the couch watching a movie, he casually brought it up. "You know, I've been thinking about that night," he said, glancing over at me with a thoughtful expression. "How did you really feel about it?" I smiled at him, knowing he genuinely cared about my feelings. Honestly, it was incredible. I never thought I'd be comfortable with something like that. But with you, it felt natural, safe. He nodded, his hand finding mine. "I'm glad you feel that way. I love seeing you like that. So free, so confident. It made me fall even more in love with you, if that's possible." His words warmed my heart. "Do you think it's something we do again?" I asked, my voice soft but curious. He shrugged lightly. "Only if it's something you want. I never want to push you into anything, but if you enjoyed it as much as I did, I'm open to exploring more together." I appreciated his openness. That was one of the things I loved most about him. His willingness to communicate, to ensure we were always on the same page. It wasn't just about fulfilling fantasies. It was about deepening our connection, about making sure we both felt seen, heard, and valued. Over the next few weeks, we talked more about our desires, our boundaries, and what the future might look like for us in terms of exploring our relationship further. It was exciting to have these conversations, to know that we could continue growing together in ways that kept the passion alive. We weren't afraid to push the limits, but we always did so with respect for each other's comfort and emotions. One night, after a long dinner with some friends, we found ourselves back in that familiar space, talking about the possibility of inviting someone else into our bedroom again. This time, though, we were more deliberate. We wanted to make sure that whoever we brought into our relationship understood the dynamics between us, respected our boundaries, and enhanced the experience for both of us. It wasn't about just adding someone for the sake of it. It was about enhancing the love and trust we already had. We both agreed that the right person would need to share our values and understand the depth of our relationship. It wasn't just about sex. It was about an experience that brought us closer together. As we ventured into this new chapter of our relationship, we took things slowly. We explored more, not just with other people, but with each other. The threesome had opened a door for us, but it wasn't the main focus of our relationship. It was just one piece of the puzzle, one that reminded us that our love was built on trust, communication, and a willingness to explore new experiences together. Every time we explored something new, it felt like we were rediscovering each other. The thrill, the excitement, the closeness, it all made me fall deeper in love with him. He wasn't just my husband, he was my partner in every sense of the word. We were navigating this journey together, hand in hand, and it made me feel more secure in our love than ever before. As time went on, I found myself more comfortable with who I was and what I wanted. My husband had always encouraged me to embrace my desires, to be confident in myself, and to know that he would support me no matter what. That night had been a turning point, not just for our relationship, but for me personally. It made me realize that I was capable of embracing new experiences without losing myself in them. In the quiet moments after our nights of passion, we would lie together, his arms wrapped around me, and I would feel a deep sense of contentment. Our love was stronger, our bond unbreakable. We had tested the waters and come out even more connected than before. And that, to me, was the most beautiful part of it all. The threesome had been an unforgettable experience, but more than that, it had shown me the depths of our relationship. It wasn't about the act itself. It was about the love and trust that made it possible. It was about knowing that we could face anything together, that we were open to exploring new aspects of our relationship without fear or judgment. In the end, it was love that drove everything. The kind of love that allowed us to be vulnerable with each other, to share our deepest desires without fear of rejection. The kind of love that made every experience, no matter how wild or unexpected, feel like a natural progression of our relationship. As I sit here reflecting on our journey, I can't help but feel grateful. Grateful for my husband, for his love, and for the incredible connection we've built together. We're not afraid to explore new experiences, but we always do so with the knowledge that our love is at the core of everything. No matter what happens, we'll always have that. And if there's one thing I've learned through it all, it's that love and trust are the foundation of any strong relationship. When you have that, the possibilities are endless. You can explore, grow, and experience new things together. knowing that your bond will only become stronger in the process. For anyone reading this, wondering if they should explore new experiences with their partner, my advice is simple. Communicate, trust, and always prioritize the love you share. If you do that, there's no limit to what you can discover together. And who knows? You might just find that it brings you closer than ever before.